Hello students, today we will discuss on capital punishment, various issues that are related to capital punishment and the debate over capital punishment. The debate hinges around the issue whether we should continue with the capital punishment or we are going to abolish capital punishment. Now, why do we need to talk about capital punishment? You see, recently in India, the Supreme Court has asked the data from the Union government regarding the capital punishment and to think on the line of an alternative to capital punishment. Today, we will discuss about 5 different aspects related to capital punishment. First, we will focus on the meaning of capital punishment. Then we will look into the history of capital punishment, a little bit of history or historical narratives. Then we will look into the theories of capital punishment. Then we will look into the debate over the capital punishment. And finally, we will focus on India's stand on capital punishment. Now, what is a punishment? Before we try to understand capital punishment, let's try to focus on the question, what is punishment? Punishment is a consequence of doing a wrong thing. If someone does anything illegal or illicit, the state is required to punish the offender. So punishment means a kind of pain which can be inflicted on an offender by a legitimate authority. Why I am stressing on legitimate authority? Because in jurisprudence, punishment can be given only by an authorized authority, and primarily it means the state. So capital punishment is regarded as the most severe form of punishment. The origin of the term capital has been borrowed from the Latin language, which means capitalis. So capitalis means head. So therefore, execution by beheading is called capital punishment. So therefore, the two terms, capital punishment and the death penalty, these are used interchangeably in the literature. Now let's see the little bit of history or the historical narrative of capital punishment. Capital punishment is regarded as the oldest form of punishment, and the references are available in almost all the ancient codes on laws. We come across the references of capital punishment in Manav Samhita, written by Manu in India. Also, we come across the references of capital punishment in the writings of Plato, Aristotle, Locke, and Sir Henry Maine, and many others. It was the most complete written legal document, which is known as Babylonian Code of Law, and it dates back to 18th century. So it is believed that the first death penalty was established in Hammurabi Code of Law. And this Hammurabi Code of Law has 23 examples of crimes which are liable to be given capital punishment. Now, recorded evidence shows that Plato has written extensively on capital punishment. He was not very happy with the capital punishment that was given to Socrates, so he has written extensively on capital punishment. In England, capital punishment was prevalent in the 17th and 18th century. And it was used in India in the ancient period, during the British period, and also in post-independence period. Now let's see what are the different forms of capital punishment. Beheading, hanging, execution by elephant, lethal injection, electrocution. These are the different forms of capital punishment. Of all these, hanging is quite prevalent in India and in many countries of Southeast Asia. In United States of America, primarily the lethal injection or electrocution is used. Students, you should keep it in mind that in United States of America, at the federal level, capital punishment has constitutional validity. But 23 states of United States of America has already abolished capital punishment. Now, what is execution by elephant? This form of capital punishment was quite prevalent in India and also in many parts of Southeast Asia. The elephants were trained specially to inflict death on the victim by crushing the offender and by prolonging the torture. However, this form of punishment was discontinued in various dynasties in India with the coming up of British. The Britishers primarily used hanging as the capital form of punishment. Now, the very important question is whom the capital punishment can be awarded. It is awarded for committing most heinous and grievous crime which goes against humanity. Now let's focus on various theoretical approaches that are there in criminology. Now there are as many as 8 theoretical perspectives which deals with the concept of punishment. Out of these 8 approaches, 3 approaches focuses on capital punishment. What are these 3 theories? Number 1, deterrent theory. Number 2, retributive theory. And number 3, preventive theory of punishment. Now let's see what are the core arguments of these 3 theories. First, the deterrent theory of punishment. The theory of deterrent is based on the narrative that punishment should match the severity of the crime. If the crime is very severe in form, punishment should equally be very serious. Because by pronouncing a serious punishment, the state will set an example of punishment, and the fear of punishment will deter people from repeating such crimes or from committing such crimes. So this theory believes in the deterrence effect, and Locke was an ardent supporter of this theory. Now let's see the second theory, that is the theory of retribution. Theory of retribution primarily depends on the principle of retributive justice. The term actually means in return. So the theory of retributive justice, which is one of the oldest approaches, believes that punishment has to be proportional to the crime committed. So the believers of this theory point out that criminals must suffer the same or similar pain which was inflicted upon others by them. In other words, like the theory of deterrent, this approach has faith on severity of punishment and supports capital punishment. The third theory, which supports capital punishment, is known as preventive theory. Patton, a Scottish philosopher, was an ardent supporter of preventive theory. This theory is based on the argument that the nature of punishment should be such which will prevent the offenders or people from committing such crimes in future. So punishment should be such in nature which will have preventive effect, and they believe that capital punishment only can prevent people from committing heinous or grievous crimes against humanity. Now, we have mentioned in the beginning that there is a debate over the capital punishment. What is the debate? Debate relates to the differences of opinion that people have over the issue of capital punishment. And the debate centers around the objective of punishment and the ideal form of punishment. So we see two groups of arguments or two groups of states or people who are either speaking in favor of capital punishment or they want to abolish capital punishment. Now let's see those who have spoken eloquently in favor of capital punishment, what kind of arguments they have put forwarded. They believe that capital punishment acts as a deterrent, which means they believe in the theory of deterrence. They believe that if the punishment is severe in nature, it will invariably eliminate crimes from the society. They also believe that capital punishment is proportionate to crimes. Here again we see they have taken clue from the theory of retributive justice. Finally, they argue that the issue of safety of the prison staffs are also a matter of concern. If we continue to keep convicts in jails who have committed serious crimes, it might pose a threat to the prison staff because they have to daily deal with the convicts. And they also argue that capital punishment is much better than life imprisonment because life imprisonment means that a person has to be behind the bar for a long period of times, which is, they argue, inhuman. Now, there is another group of people who argue that capital punishment should be abolished, and they rest their arguments on 5 very important points. Number 1, it is irrevocable. Number 2, capital punishment is inhuman. Number 3, it is immoral and unjust. And number 4, there is no scope for rehabilitation, and capital punishment usually goes against the poorer section of the society. Their main argument stems from the human rights perspective. They argue that right to life is the fundamental human rights. So no one has the authority to take away someone's life, even a person has committed a heinous crime. Other forms of punishment could be given to a person who has committed serious crime, but not death penalty, because this violates the basic human rights, that is, the right to life. This group of people who supports the abolishment of capital punishment, they have also mentioned that the data shows the capital punishment usually goes against the poorer section of the society because they cannot afford the legal services, therefore they cannot defend their cases. Most of the capital punishments, if we see their cases, we will see the poor people have suffered a lot and they became the victims of capital punishment. So far we have discussed about the arguments in favor of capital punishment, and in favor of abolishment of capital punishment. Now let's see which are the organizations which are working relentlessly in creating public opinion in favor of abolishing capital punishments. Here we can mention the names of two very important organizations. One is international organization, that is United Nations, and the second one is World Coalition on Death Penalty, which is a civil society organization. Now let's see how many countries have abolished capital punishment. As far as the record of Amnesty International is concerned, out of 195 countries, 108, that is 108 countries have already abolished capital punishment completely. 34 countries have abolished capital punishment in practice. The term in practice implies that these countries have not used capital punishment for the past 10 years or more, and they believe in abolishing capital punishment. So out of 195 countries, only 53 countries have retained capital punishment as part of their jurisprudence. And majority of the countries are in Asia. For example, China, Egypt, Saudi Arabia, they continue to retain capital punishment. And in India also, capital punishment is constitutionally valid. Now, this progress of abolishing capital punishment is slow. In 1945, we see only 8 countries abolished capital punishment totally. By 1977, 16 countries joined hands with the other countries which already abolished capital punishment. By 210, we see another 96 countries decided to abolish capital punishment. Now, the first resolution that was placed in United Nations was in the year 2007, and Italy took a lead in placing that resolution. However, Italy did not meet with much success, but slowly and gradually, if we look at the record of the Amnesty International, we see many countries have joined hands together to abolish capital punishment, either totally or in practice. The second organization, that is the World Coalition on Death Penalty, its headquarters is in France, but again, we would like to mention here that Italy took the lead in establishing that civil society organization, which is basically a network. So far, 108 countries have registered with this coalition, which means in 108 countries we have branches of this coalition. This is primarily an advocacy alliance which tries to mobilize public support in favor of abolishing capital punishment. So students, so far we have discussed the meaning of capital punishment. We have seen the historical narratives, and we have also seen the global trends as far as the capital punishment is concerned and the debate over capital punishment. So students, so far we have seen the trajectory of capital punishment, its meaning, its historical narratives, and global trends. Now let's see what is the position of our country, that is India, on capital punishment. In India, the capital punishment is constitutionally valid. The issue of capital punishment, its continuation or abolishment, actually figured in the parliament thrice twice in the Rajya Sabha and once in Lok Sabha. Finally, in the year 1973, the Supreme Court pronounced the rarest of rare doctrine as far as capital punishment in India is concerned. So in India, capital punishment can be awarded by the state provided it follows the rarest of rare doctrine. Now, what is the rarest of rare doctrine? Rarest of rare doctrine narrates that the state can award this form of punishment after cautious deliberation, proper investigation, and after taking into consideration the socio-economic background of the offender. So, capital punishment cannot be given sparingly. Only in exceptional cases, capital punishment can be awarded. Now, the question arises, what kind of crimes that require capital punishment? It is believed that if the crime is grievous, heinous, and goes against the humanity, and which shakes the conscience of the entire community, then it can be considered as a grievous crime. For example, rape, treason against a nation, abetment of mutiny, this comes under capital punishment. As far as India is concerned, it has always voted against the resolution, United Nations resolution in the General Assembly from 2007 till 2022, which was the year when the last resolution was placed in the General Assembly of United Nations seeking abolishment of capital punishment. India has argued that in India, only in exceptional circumstances, the capital punishment is awarded, and that too following the rarest of rare doctrine. And the result is that the number of capital punishment is very low in India, which proves that India exercises the capital punishment only in cases which comes under the crimes against humanity. Moreover, in India, juveniles are exempted from capital punishment, which means if a person is below 18 years of age, he is not awarded capital punishment. Rather, the state takes the responsibility of the rehabilitation of that person, which shows that in India, the jurisprudence is based both on reformative justice as well as on the concept of deterrence. Now, as far as the debate on capital punishment is concerned, we have seen there is absolutely no unanimity. It is true that majority of the countries of Europe have abolished capital punishment, and we see the increasing number of capital punishments in countries like China, Egypt, and Saudi Arabia, but more than 50% of the countries have totally abolished capital punishment. However, when we look at the debate in the General Assembly of United Nations, we do understand that so far there is no unanimity, no consensus has developed over its total abolishment. It has to be seen in future whether we come across a situation where all the countries, that is 195 countries, have abolished capital punishments, or whether certain countries continue to retain it in the name of their peculiar or their particular, rather I should use the term particular, system of justice. So this is all about capital punishment, and we have tried to understand what is the meaning of capital punishment, what is the debate over capital punishment, what are the various theoretical perspectives through which capital punishment has been approached, the global trend on capital punishment, and finally India's stand. Dear students, I hope this will help you to understand the trajectory of capital punishment. Thank you.